Welcome to Transplant Nephrology, Module 2. This is where we leave the calm foundations behind and go to the bedside, because now we deal with what happens when things go wrong. I'm Amit Kishal. Let's start where you'll actually start, in clinic, staring at a lab result. Your patient is 4 months out from his transplant. He feels completely fine. He's here for a routine visit. But his creatinine, which has been sitting at 1.3 for weeks, is back today at 1.9. Nothing hurts, he has no symptoms, just a number that moved in the wrong direction. And that number is the most common way transplant trouble announces itself. Not with drama, but with a quiet rise in the creatinine. So the question for today isn't about one disease, it's a skill. When the creatinine rises in a transplant, how do you think? What's on the list? How do you sort it? And how do you get to the answer? Because a rising creatinine isn't a diagnosis, it's the beginning of a search. Here's the plan. First, the mindset. A rising creatinine is a differential diagnosis, and we'll build the full list and sort it into buckets you can actually hold in your head. And we'll add the single most useful clue of all, timing, because when a problem shows up, tells you what it probably is. Then we'll walk the workup the way you'd really do it. The quick reversible things first, then the tests that narrow it down. And we'll end where transplant so often ends, the biopsy, the one test that settles the argument. This episode is the map. The next ones are the individual diseases. Let's build the map. So, the first move, and the most important one. When you see that creatinine rise, do not reach for one diagnosis. The single biggest mistake is to see a transplant patient and immediately think rejection. Rejection is on the list, but so are half a dozen other things, and some of them are far quicker and easier to fix. A rising creatinine is a differential. Your job is to work the whole list, not jump to the scariest item. So let's build that list and sort it. Here's the trick. You already know this framework from general nephrology. Pre-renal, intrinsic, post-renal. It works just as well for a transplant, with a transplant flavor. Pre-renal. The kidney isn't getting enough flow. Plain dehydration, or the calcineurin inhibitor clamping down the artery, or a narrowing of the transplant's own artery. Post-renal. Something blocking the outflow. A kink or stricture in the ureter, a stone, or a fluid collection pressing on it. And then the big bucket, intrinsic. Damage inside the kidney itself. Rejection, drug toxicity, infection like the BK virus, or a glomerular disease coming back. Same 3 buckets you already know, now just stocked with transplant-specific causes. Now the clue that does the most work for the least effort, timing. When the creatinine rises tells you an enormous amount about why. In the first days, you're thinking about the kidney being stunned from the transplant itself, delayed graft function. In the first weeks to months, acute rejection and drug toxicity move to the top. Around 3 months to a year, a very specific villain appears, the BK virus. And late, over years, you think about chronic scarring and glomerular diseases coming back. So before you order a single test, the calendar has already narrowed your list. Our patient is at 4 months. Hold that thought. Let's test the mindset. A brand new intern sees your 4-month patient with a creatinine that jumped from 1.3 to 1.9 and immediately says, "It's rejection. Let's treat." Name 2 quicker, more reversible things you'd want to rule out first. 1 pre-renal, 1 post-renal, before you accept that it's rejection. Think it through. Reveal in 7 seconds. Here's the answer. The pre-renal one to catch first is simple volume depletion, or a calcineurin inhibitor level that's run too high and is clamping down the artery. A dehydrated patient, or a high tacrolimus level, can raise the creatinine all on its own, and both are fixed in a day. The post-renal one is obstruction, a stricture in the ureter or a fluid collection pressing on it. It's silent, it's common in the first few months, and it's found in minutes with an ultrasound. Neither one needs a biopsy, neither one needs heavy immunosuppression, and missing them means treating the wrong thing. That's the whole point of not jumping to rejection. So let's make that concrete. The quick, reversible causes you clear first. Pre-renal. Is he dry? Did someone start a diuretic, or has he had diarrhea? And check the tacrolimus level. Is it sky high? Fixing volume or bringing a toxic drug level down might solve the whole thing. Post-renal. Is there anything blocking the ureter? A stricture, a stone, a lymphocele, even just a blocked catheter? These are mechanical, and they're reversible, and every hour they sit there, they scar the kidney a little more. Now here's how you actually walk the workup, in order. Start at the bedside, history and exam. Volume status. What medications changed? Is he even taking his pills? Then the first-line labs, the creatinine trend, a tacrolimus level, a urinalysis, and, this is key, send a donor-specific antibody and a BK virus level, because those two point at specific diagnoses. Then imaging, an ultrasound with Dopplers to rule out obstruction, collections, and a problem with the artery. And if all of that hasn't given you the answer, and often it hasn't, you go to the test that will, the biopsy. Cheap things first, the definitive thing last. So say the easy stuff is clean. He's not dry, the tacrolimus level is fine, there's no obstruction. Now you're in the big bucket, intrinsic disease, and this is where transplant gets its reputation. Let me give you the short list of what's actually damaging the kidney from the inside. Rejection, both kinds, the T-cell type and the antibody type, and they behave differently. Calcineurin inhibitor toxicity, the drug we love, turning on the kidney. Infection inside the graft, most classically the BK virus, but also a kidney infection or CMV. And glomerular disease, the original disease coming back, or a new one appearing. Every one of these can present as exactly what our patient has, a quiet rise in creatinine. And here's the hard truth. You usually cannot tell them apart from the outside. They look the same on labs. That's why the biopsy exists. But before the biopsy, one imaging test earns its keep, the ultrasound with Dopplers. It's fast, it's harmless, and it answers 3 questions at once. 1. Is the drainage blocked? A dilated collecting system, hydronephrosis, means obstruction, full stop. 2. Is there a collection? A lymphocele or a urine leak can sit next to the kidney and press on the ureter. 3. How's the blood supply? The Dopplers look at flow in the transplant artery. A tight narrowing there, transplant renal artery stenosis, TRAS, causes a rising creatinine and hard-to-control blood pressure, and it's fixable. The classic tell, the creatinine jumps right after you start an ACE inhibitor. One quick scan and 3 big categories are either in or out. Test it. Your patient's ultrasound comes back. No obstruction, no collection, but the Doppler shows a tight, high-velocity narrowing right at the transplant artery, and you remember his blood pressure has been impossible to control lately. What's the diagnosis, and what's the one medication-related clue from his chart that would have pointed you here? Think it through. Reveal in 7 seconds. Here's the answer. The diagnosis is transplant renal artery stenosis, TRAS. A tight, high-velocity jet at the transplant artery on Doppler, plus blood pressure you suddenly can't control is the picture. It starves the kidney of flow, the creatinine drifts up, and the body cranks up blood pressure trying to compensate. And the medication clue? Starting an ACE inhibitor or an ARB. In a kidney fed by a narrowed artery, those drugs drop the pressure inside the filter, and the creatinine jumps, sometimes dramatically. A sharp creatinine rise right after starting one of those drugs is a classic flag for a narrowed artery. It's fixable, often with a stent, which is exactly why you don't want to miss it and treat empty air as rejection. But suppose the ultrasound is clean and the easy causes are gone. Then you arrive at the test transplant medicine is built around, the allograft biopsy. We take a needle under ultrasound and get a small core of the transplant kidney. And that core can finally tell the causes apart that all looked identical from the outside. Is it rejection? And which kind? Under the microscope, T-cell rejection shows inflammatory cells invading the tubules and the arteries. Antibody rejection shows injury in the tiny capillaries, and we stain for a marker called C4D and check for donor-specific antibody. Is it the BK virus? A specific stain lights it up. Is it drug toxicity, or scarring, or recurrent glomerular disease? Each has its own footprint. And there's a shared language for all of this, so pathologists everywhere describe it the same way. It's called the BAMF classification. The biopsy is what turns the creatinine is up into a name. So let's put the whole method together. A rising creatinine starts a search, not a treatment. You use timing to narrow the list. You clear the quick reversible causes, volume, drug levels, obstruction, because they're fast and you'd hate to miss them. You send the two targeted tests, the donor-specific antibody and the BK level. You scan to check drainage and the artery. And when the answer still isn't clear, you biopsy. Follow that path and you almost never treat the wrong thing. Last test. Different patient, 10 months out. Creatinine creeping up. Volume fine, tacrolimus level fine, ultrasound clean, donor-specific antibody negative. But his BK virus level in the blood comes back very high. Where does the timing and that one lab point you? And what's the dangerous reflex you must not reach for here? Think it through. Reveal in 7 seconds. Here's the answer. 10 months out, a rising creatinine and a high BK virus level in the blood. That's BK virus nephropathy until proven otherwise. The timing fits perfectly, and the blood level is the flag. And the dangerous reflex you must not reach for? Treating it as rejection by piling on more immunosuppression. Because BK is the opposite problem. It's an infection that only took hold because the immune system was suppressed too much. The treatment is to reduce immunosuppression, not increase it. If you saw the rising creatinine, assumed rejection, and pushed the immunosuppression up, you would pour fuel on the fire. That is the entire reason this episode exists. The rising creatinine is a question, and the answer changes everything about what you do next. Same number, opposite treatments. 3 principles to carry with you. First, a rising creatinine is a differential, not a diagnosis. Never jump straight to rejection. Work the list. Second, timing and the quick tests do most of the work. When it happened, plus volume, drug levels, and ultrasound, a donor-specific antibody and a BK level will steer you most of the way there. And third, when the outside can't tell the causes apart, the biopsy can. It's the test that turns a number into a name. In a language, BAMF, everyone shares. What's next? We've built the map. Now we walk it, one destination at a time. Episode 6 takes the diagnosis everyone fears first, acute rejection, the T-cell kind, how it looks on that biopsy, and how we treat it. From here on, every episode in this module is one of the boxes we just drew. If this way of thinking is useful, subscribe and share it with a co-fellow, and tell me in the comments which of these diagnoses you want to go deep on. I'm Amit Kaushal. Thanks for thinking it through with me. I'll see you in episode 6.